Shabbat Shalom. It is wonderful for me to sit in my home in Cleveland and imagine you in your homes in and around Portsmouth and all of us partaking of Shabbat together. Yes, I wish I could see your faces, but I do feel your spirits, and as I hope you feel one another's. Welcome to the Shabbat service together. I want to start with thanks to Stan Workman, to Phil Blau above all, for the music, for the tech support, for the willingness to try this experiment. So dear friends, welcome, Shabbat Shalom. Please be comfortable in your sitting, be comfortable where you are, take a moment to breathe, to leave the week behind, to leave the world behind, and enjoy this time of Shabbat. It will not be a traditional Shabbat service. We do not have a minyan. We are not 10 people. But the essence of Shabbat remains forever. And so we will start with wonderful, wonderful song. And if you are by your Shabbat candles, please light them at this time. We are so grateful for all the lights in our life. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Please join me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirtzanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת.
Amen. As we welcome the Sabbath bride in such a different way, in such an unusual way, still we take the time to welcome her, to not only let the last week go, but also to welcome in that which is timeless, that which we have always done, that which brings us such joy and such gratitude.
שבת מקבלה, לך דודי לי Shabbat nekavena. Lekadodi, lekadodi likratala. Bene Shabbat nekavena. Lekadodi likratala. Bene Shabbat nekavena. Shamor vezachor v'dibur echad. Ishmianu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad. L'Shemu tiferet v'li'tila. Lekadodi likratala. Bene Shabbat nekavena. Lekadodi likratala. Bene Shabbat nekavena. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha. Ki mekor habracha. Merosh mikdem neshucha. Sof maaseh b'machshava tefila. Lekadodi likratala. Bene Shabbat nekavena. Lekadodi likratala. Bene Shabbat nekavena. Igorri, kiva urri, shirda beiri, kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lekadodi likratala. Bene Shabbat nekavena. Lekadodi likratala. Bene Shabbat nekavena. Oi veshalom ateret bala. Gam besimcha u'betzola. Emune am segula. Vohi chala. Lekadodi likratala. Bene Shabbat nekavena. Lekadodi likratala. Bene Shabbat nekavena.
We can affirm together the watchword of our faith, as my rabbi used to call it when I was a kid. I love that. We can, but let us, in this unusual setting, take a moment to gather our thoughts, to think about what oneness means at a time of such great separation. Some people find it helpful to close their eyes before they say Shema and concentrate, and others find staring and being open to the world works for them. Please join in Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
Please read with me. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. Emet. Dear friends, this should be a blank screen in front of your eyes at this time. Jewish prayer is a combination of that which is fixed, that which is the way we are supposed to do things, and that which comes from the heart. I have a favorite that I wanted to share with you at this point. Please listen if you'd like. If your heart directs you otherwise, all the better. This is an hour of change. Within it, we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it, we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv Aravim. As we cross over from the work week into Shabbat, and we had celebrate with great joy and sing together. This is, I know, one of our congregation's favorites.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים והארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורתם ברית עולם.
I love how the music takes me to all the many different times I've heard that song and sung that song, and what it's meant to me over the years. So with great gratitude, we come to the time of personal prayer, of tefillah. We are accustomed to saying, Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. O eternal God, open my lips that my mouth shall declare your praise. And I will pick just one reading that I hope speaks to you as well as it does to me. Days pass and the years vanish, and we walk sightless among miracles. God, fill our eyes with seeing and our minds with knowing. Let there be moments when your presence like lightning illumines the darkness in which we walk. Help us to see wherever we gaze that the bush burns unconsumed. And we, clay touched by God, will reach out for holiness and exclaim in wonder, how filled with awe is this place, and we did not know it. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Blessed is the Eternal One, the Holy God.
Shalom, Rabbi Yisrael, Amcha, Toshim, Le'olam. Shalom, Rabbi Yisrael, Amcha, Toshim, Le'olam. Yatahu melech Adon, Lekol hashalom. Yatahu melech Adon, Lekol hashalom. Lekol melech לברך את עמך ישראל וכל נפושו בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום.
In this time of so many prayers, prayers above all for health, for safety, prayers for our loved ones, prayers from those whom we're separated, prayers those whom we miss. Let us take a time in silence for our prayers.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. Amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
I mentioned, of course, all those prayers for all who are sick, for all who are frightened, for all who are isolated in ways much more profound than ever before. I actually specifically didn't ask Stan to record this. We sing it, we love it, but I'm hoping you will pray these words with me tonight. Mishaberach Avotenu, Makor Habracha Le'imotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. And let us say Amen. For all who are ill, for their caretakers, for their beloveds. May they all be granted courage and hope and healing. Amen. Mishaberach imotenu, makor habracha la'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit. And let us all say, Amen. Ken yehi ratzon, may it be so. I'm going to read a little Torah to you tonight. We don't make a blessing. We don't have a minyan. But it is from this week's Torah portion and thought I'd talk about it just a little bit. We have a double portion this week, Achrei Mot Kedoshim, and I'm going to be reading from Achrei Mot from the 18th chapter of Leviticus. Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el bnei Yisrael va'amarta alehem. The Eternal spoke to Moses thusly, speak to the people of Israel and say to them, Ani Adonai Elohechem, I am the Eternal, your God. K'ma'aseh eretz Mitzrayim asher yashavtem ba lo ta'asu. According to the deeds of the land of the Egyptians amongst whom you dwell, do not do. U'k'ma'aseh eretz Canaan asher ani mevi etchem shama lo ta'asu. And according to the deeds of the inhabitant of the land of Canaan, toward which I am bringing you there, don't do that either, in parenthesis. Uvahukotechem lo telechu, and in their ways do not go, do not walk. Et mishpatai ta'asu, ve'et chukotai tishmeru, but rather my statutes and my laws you will do, you will observe. Lalechet behem, to walk in them. Ani Adonai Elohechem, I am the Eternal your God. Ushmartem et chukotai ve'et mishpatai, and you will observe my laws and my statutes. Asher ya'aseotam, in order that you do them. Ha'adam v'chai bahem, Ani Adonai, and you will live by them. I am the Eternal. So this is what I've been thinking about this section. And we're in Leviticus. When my oldest son was born, one of the best cards I got said, other than Torah portions in Leviticus, April is a wonderful time for a birthday. We're right in the thick of the Leviticus that people really don't want to deal with. And wouldn't it be nice if the whole Torah were like Genesis? Wouldn't it be great if it were filled with stories about families and nice pastoral scenes? It would certainly be easier than even a verse like this. And we didn't even get into, sacrifices here. So again, we're in Leviticus. We're faced with a difficult portion to digest. Leviticus has a lot of talk of defilement and nakedness, and that's really hard to hear and to relate to our lives. Even if we were outrightly to reject all of it, which we don't, we would still have to grapple with some of these verses. Verse that I just read in chapter 18 says, as to the practices of the land of Egypt in which you dwelt, and to the ways of the land of Canaan, where I am taking you, do not follow. Only my laws and statutes shall you observe. This concept presented in this verse has always been central to Jewish lives. It sums up a constant Jewish struggle. You see, we have only rarely not lived in the midst of other peoples. We have almost always had to deal with the realities of living amongst others. If we were to follow this commandment literally, we would have to avoid all contact with anyone not Jewish and do nothing like anyone else does it. And of course, we don't do that. Jewish history testifies to our willingness to live with other peoples who practice other religions, who live life differently than we do. We do not sit as a mass in the middle of another mass and remain unchanged. But because we have remained Jews, we have decided not to do all the things other people do. We've always chosen how much to absorb from the world around us and how much to avoid. Dear friends, that process is called assimilation. Now I know it's a heated word. For some, it conjures up negative images of Jews who don't know how or why to be Jews, or it conjures up pictures of Jews abandoning their Judaism. But I think assimilation has its benefits. If we Jews hadn't assimilated into Spanish culture in the 12th century, we might never have had Jewish philosophy. If we hadn't assimilated into Polish culture in the 16th century, we might not have had Yiddish or Yiddish culture. But assimilation is a tricky thing. How much borrowing from those around us is too much? Is there a point where we stop being Jewish if we're too much like everyone else? If so, where is that point? These are hard questions we have to ask ourselves. Noted Torah commentator Nechama Leibovich said it this way: the children of Israel, who had left and were about to enter a highly civilized environment after their long wanderings in the desert, were particularly susceptible to the cultural attractions, or as Torah calls them, defilements and abominations of their past and future neighbors. We know today only too well how the technical achievements of civilization do not always reflect similar advancement in the field of ethics and morality. The Jewish people were therefore warned against preferring the outward attractions of civilizations above the purity of personal conduct. Now, the reality is that we will always borrow from the majority culture. Here in America, we've borrowed our language, our style of dress, our civic beliefs, our patterns of work, play, and family. But often, we have to stop and ask ourselves, have we gone too far? Is Saturday to be kept as the Sabbath, but also a weekend day? Should we go to the mall or temple, or both? If being Jewish means doing tzedakah, should we give our time and money to Jewish or non-Jewish causes, or both? If being Jewish means having a special attachment to Israel, do we save our summer money for a trip there or across the United States? I don't know an absolute all-for-one answer to any of these specific questions. I do know that the verse in Torah tells me to be careful, not to go too overboard in the direction of assimilation. Yes, I can ask the question, does that make me an American who's Jewish or a Jew who's American? And it's a question I believe we each actually ask ourselves. And I know that the answer changes from time to time, depending on where we are and with what we are busy in our lives. And that is as it should be. Judaism is dynamic. Life is dynamic. But I issue us all a challenge. Don't ever let the answer be the easy way out just because it's easy. Let's not do what seems fastest or most convenient. Before we are faced with a situation that requires an answer and a compromise, let us examine our practices and do away what is too far afield from our core values. Let us also keep what is right, and let us also be willing to reclaim that which we wish we hadn't abandoned in the first place. You know, these past 6 weeks of being at home and of completely different routines in my life and all our lives has engendered a lot of conversation that says, you know what, maybe this isn't all so bad. In my own life, I'm cooking dinner on weekends. Wayne had no idea I knew how to cook. It was a nice little advantage to have. But we're playing board games with each other, even if we're playing them online. We're sitting down and having family meal. We had Seder by Zoom. We found new ways to do old things. We're walking around the neighborhood. We're talking at safe distances to our neighbors. I've lived here 33 years. There are people I've never spoken to who have lived here as long as I have. Maybe this is a chance, it's one of those chances in our lives to readjust, to ask these questions again. What are the practices that are too far? What are the practices that we abandoned that we ought to bring back? Is it cooking instead of going out? Is it talking to neighbors? Is it finding time to call people we haven't spoken to in too long rather than just shoot the text? Maybe because we're bored, maybe because we're worried about them. Torah gives us this challenge. It says to us, don't do it just like everyone else for the sake of doing it just like everyone else. Yes, it means work and continual thought, but that is the essence, I believe, of maturity, of living a mature Jewish life. We have the tools that Torah gives us. How we use them really is up to us. But dear friends, let us consider them and let us use them. Amen. We celebrated this week Israel's 72nd Independence Day. This is a favorite prayer of mine. The voice will not be familiar to you, but I hope you'll appreciate it.
אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו, ברך את מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחה גאולתנו. אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו, ברך את מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחה גאולתנו. הגן עליך בברכה חסדך, ופרוסי הסוכות שלומך, ושלח אורך עמך ורשתך שריך ויועציך. וחנכילם אלוהינו ישועה ועטרת ניצחון קטן, ונתת שלום שלום בארץ, ושמחת עולם לכל יושביך. אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו, ברך את מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחה גאולתנו. אבינו שבשמיים, צור ישראל וגואלו, ברך את מדינת ישראל, ראשית צמיחה גאולתנו.
Avinu Shebashamayim, Heavenly One, Israel's rock and redeemer, bless the state of Israel, the first flowering of your final redemption. Shield it under the wings of your loving kindness and spread over it the tabernacle of your peace. Send your light and truth to its leaders, ministers, and counselors, and direct them with good counsel before you. Strengthen the hands of the defenders of our holy land. Grant them deliverance, our God, and crown them with the crown of victory. Grant peace in the land and everlasting joy to its inhabitants. Unite our hearts to love and revere your name and observe all the words of your Torah. Appear in your glorious majesty over the dwellers on earth, and let all who breathe declare, the eternal God of Israel is sovereign and has dominion over us all. Amen. Selah. Happy birthday, Israel. Please join me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shechianu, v'kiyumanu, v'higianu lazman hazeh. That we celebrate Israel's 72nd birthday, that we find a way to make Shabbat together while apart. Amen. As we close our service tonight, I wish you all a Shabbat of peace, a Shabbat of rest of body and soul, a Shabbat of health. Thank you for taking the time to be together apart, with prayer and hope that we will be together in body as well soon, speedily.
אדון עולם אשר מלך, בטרם כל יציר נברא, מנעשה וחסד ופוקול, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. ואחרי ככלות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה, והוא יהיה ותפארה. והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשילה, להכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמזרח. והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצור קרבי ושרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנקוסי ביום אקרא. וידו אחיר רוחי, ותישן ואירה, ואמרתי גבייתי, אדוני לי ולא אירא.
With music, with words, with joy, I wish you Shabbat Shalom. Baruchem b'shalom zeitchem l'shalom. As you came here in peace, may you go too unto peace. Shabbat Shalom u'mevarach. And again, with many, many thanks.